Hello, I'm Miss Shannon. Welcome to Reading Rascals. For those of you who are new to my channel, please consider being a subscriber as I like to develop reading materials for children ages 4 to 8. I also teach online reading courses for that same age group, and you can contact me at my website, readingrascals.org. Today's topic is winter. Ooh, get on your sweaters and your big coats, rascals. Today we have a very fun story called Mrs. Toggle's Zipper, written by Robin Pulver and illustrated by R.W. Alley. Now, reminder, author means they wrote all the words to our story today. Illustrator means they drew all the beautiful pictures. Now, as many of you remember, when I read story time, I am often joined by my raccoon friend, Ray. Can any of you see where Ray might be hiding today? Is she in the trees? I don't see her. It's pretty cold out there. I'm glad she has her fur winter coat on. I don't see her in those bushes over there. Is she hiding in my coat? Ray, where are you? Do you see her, rascals? There's Ray hiding down in those bushes in the snow. Well, Ray, I hope you have fun today in listening to our story. There is a fun word in our story today called thingamajig. What does that mean? We will find out. But every time you hear Miss Shannon read the word thingamajig, I want you rascals to stand up, turn around, sit back down. Let's see how many times we can hear that word throughout our story today. Again, rascals, you're listening for the word thingamajig. When you hear it, stand your body up, turn your body around, sit back down. Okay, rascals, get cozy for our story. Again, Mrs. Toggle's Zipper. When Mrs. Toggle's children arrived at school in the morning, they changed in the hall from their boots to their shoes. When the bell rang, they picked up their boots and their boot bags and marched them into the room. They stuffed their boots and the bags into their cubby holes and hung up their coats. Then they sat down at their desks. "Good morning, Mrs. Toggle," they smiled. Then the children sat down. "Good morning, class," said Mrs. Toggle in an unusually grumpy voice. Then the children noticed that Mrs. Toggle was still wearing her big winter coat, the big puffy fuchsia colored one that she got as a present. "Mrs. Toggle," yelled Joey, "you forgot to take off your coat." "I didn't forget," said Mrs. Toggle kind of uncomfortably. "I can't take it off because the zipper is stuck. I'm afraid it's going to be a long, hot day in this coat." "How did the zipper get stuck?" Nina asked. Mrs. Toggle fanned her face. "How does any zipper get stuck? First, a tiny bit of cloth gets caught inside. Then you pull and you pull too hard, and before you know it, you're trapped in your coat like a hand in the cookie jar." The children gathered around Mrs. Toggle's desk to see for themselves. "Yup," said Joey, "the zipper is sure stuck." The others nodded in agreement. "What's worse," said Mrs. Toggle, "the thingamajig is gone." "The what? Did you hear it?" "Stand up, rascals, turn around, sit back down." "What's that?" the kids asked. "You know, the thingamajig." Keep listening. "That thingamajig you pull the zipper up and down with. Mine is lost." "Oh no," groaned the children. They all thought happily about their own coats hanging on the zipper with their zippers open and their thingamajigs still on it. Stand up, turn around, sit back down. "Maybe we can help," said Caroline. "It's worth a try," said Mrs. Toggle. Mrs. Toggle braced her feet on the floor. She leaned forward in her chair and held out her arms. Some of the children grabbed onto one sleeve, some the other sleeve. Paul and Nina grabbed fistfuls of her collar. Now, yelled Mrs. Toggle, and everyone pulled. And everyone landed with thuds and bumps in a heap on the floor. Mrs. Toggle's collar was as far up as her nose, but no further than that. Paul wanted to get busy learning his timetables. Mrs. Toggle, he said, let's go to the nurse's office. Maybe Mrs. Schott can help you. So Mrs. Toggle and the children trudged down the hallway to see Mrs. Schott, the school nurse. When Mrs. Schott saw Mrs. Toggle's hot red face, she reached for a thermometer and popped it into Mrs. Toggle's mouth. Mrs. Toggle shook her head. I don't have a temperature, she tried to say. Don't talk with the thermometer in your mouth, said Mrs. Schott. I'll telephone your mother. I don't live with my mother, she mumbled with the thermostat in her mouth. Please close your mouth, ordered Mrs. Schott. Nina spoke up. She's not sick, and she doesn't live with her mother because she's a grown-up. Mrs. Toggle is hot because she can't get her coat off. The zipper's stuck, and the thingamajig is lost. You heard it, thingamajig. Then we must pull it off, said Mrs. Schott. Oh, we tried that already, said Paul. This time we'll add a bandage. The nurse answered, bandages make boo-boos all better. But first, Mrs. Toggle, you must take that thermometer out of your mouth. Mrs. Schott stuck a bandage on the zipper where the thingamajig was supposed to be on her jacket. Then she pulled and the children pulled, and they all ended with thuds and bumps and bangs on the floor of Mrs. Schott's office. Mrs. Toggle's collar was as far up as her nose, but no further than that. Mrs. Schott shook her head. I must call the principal. Maybe he'll know what to do. The principal, Mr. Stickler, left important matters on his desk to hurry to the nurse's office. Mr. Stickler frowned when he saw Mrs. Toggle. Mrs. Toggle, it's against school rules to wear your coat all day inside. I am sorry, said Mrs. Toggle, but I can't take my coat off. The zipper is stuck. Tell him about the thingamajig, said Nina. Here you go, rascals. The what? Mr. Stickler asked. You know, said Paul, the what's it, the doodad, the whatchamacallit, said Joey. My students are right, said Mrs. Toggle. The thingamajig is missing. The principal frowned again. Mrs. Toggle, he said, in my job, I have learned that if you want to get out of a tight spot, you must follow the rules. Pay attention, children, he said. Make 2 straight lines. One line will pull on the right arm, and the other line will pull on the left. Mrs. Schott, you be responsible for the collar. I shall pull on Mrs. Toggle's feet. We've tried that already, said Joey. Pulling doesn't work, agreed Nina. Did you make 2 straight lines, though? Asked Mr. Stickler. That's the rule. 2 straight lines. Now, get ready. 1, 2, 3, pull. The children and Mrs. Schott pulled in one direction. Mr. Stickler pulled in the other direction. Mrs. Toggle tried to make herself small and wiggly out, but with thuds, bumps, bangs, and kerplops, they all ended up on the floor once more. Mrs. Toggle's collar was as far up as her nose, but no further than that. Mr. Stickler said, enough of this. We don't want holes in the school's floor just because of Mrs. Toggle's zipper. I'm calling the custodian. I'm afraid he'll have to cut this coat off. No, yelled the children. Never, cried Mrs. Toggle. The custodian, Mr. Abel, arrived wearing his big work apron. Tools bulged in every pocket. He looked at Mrs. Toggle in her coat. Is the building too cold for you? He kindly asked. Maybe the thermostat's off. I'll go check it for you. Wait, said Mr. Stickler. See, said Caroline, Mrs. Toggle can't get her coat off because her zipper's stuck. Yes, the principal said, and there's some problem with the thingamajig. Mr. Abel listened carefully. He said, I can see that your pull tab is gone. The what? Said the children and Mrs. Toggle and the nurse and the principal all together. I said, your pull tab is gone. Don't worry, I've seen worse. Mr. Abel pulled a pair of needle-nose pliers out of a huge apron pocket. He used the pliers to loosen the grip on the zipper's metal teeth, on the shiny fuchsia-colored lining inside Mrs. Toggle's coat. Gently, with his large fingers, Mr. Abel eased the lining away from the teeth of the zipper. Then he slid the zipper down, down, down until it opened completely. And Mr. Abel helped Mrs. Toggle off with her coat. A happy smile spread over Mrs. Toggle's face. Mrs. Schott and Mr. Stickler and the children all cheered. You should get a new pull tab for that zipper before you try to zip it up again, said the custodian. I surely will, Mr. Abel, said Mrs. Toggle. I am forever grateful. The principal went back to important matters. Mrs. Schott rushed off to check a child, and Mrs. Toggle and the children traipsed back to their room to tackle those times tables. And Mr. Abel pulled out a small pad from his huge apron pocket and wrote himself a reminder. Remember to look up that word thingamajig in the dictionary. Last one, up and sit down. Okay, rascals, Miss Shannon's going to take her jacket off just like Mrs. Toggle. Now, let's talk about a couple things. We found out that that word thingamajig was just a funny way to describe the pull tab. And in our book, Mr. Abel, the custodian, was able to get Mrs. Toggle's jacket off, but reminded her that she needs to put a new pull tab so she can use that zipper. Now, this would be a great time to talk to you rascals about using your zippers and your buttons and your snaps. All my students, before you go to kindergarten, those are some things we want to practice. Use those hands to work your zippers, your buttons, and your snaps. Well, wonderful seeing you, everyone. If you are where it snows, dress warm. Bye, rascals. Till next time.